everybody. This is Martin Steed, and welcome to CEO to CEO. Founders and funders are in the thunder of possibilities of what can truly happen if you put your brain, your mind, and the idea together. I am joined by the one and the only Regina Gwynn. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Why and how did you fund and begin to found, because I'm sure you had to fund it if you founded it, the Black Women Talk Tech?
Yes. So, Black Women Talk Tech started as an opportunity to create a community for women of color building technology companies. Myself and my co founder, Asosa Igadero, were both tech entrepreneurs. So, we had founded our own technology companies and understood very personally how challenging it was navigating the technology ecosystem. Having built our own, I had a beauty startup back in 2013, 2014 here in New York City. And so it was that experience where raising venture capital, trying to find the right CTO, trying to understand how to develop a business model that just hadn't been developed before. There was no blueprint. And so, trying to find other resources and access to those opportunities was what really prompted us to develop Black Women Talk Tech. And so we now educate, amplify, and fund other women entrepreneurs through our Roadmap to Billions technology conference series, our recruiting events, as well as our pitch competitions and more.
Think about that young lady. She is truly thinking about leaving college. She's at a Howard, a Hampton, a Fisk, a TSU, or Grambling, or just any other college. And she's thinking about what should she understand about having a mentor who is already in the tech business, the value proposition that offers her as she dreams about having and becoming a CEO.
When I think about having a mentor, the first thing is having someone who's willing to tell it like it is. You know, you want to be able to have someone that's going to not sugarcoat anything. This business is very tough. It's very male dominated. And in the grand scheme of things, you need to be able to do your job. Okay. I think a lot of times there's this idea where, you want to be able to focus on all of the soft skills, and the soft skills are important, but you also have to be able to physically, professionally, and be able to fulfill the role in and of itself, and then be able to layer on the soft skills, the networking, the relationship building, and the cultivation. And so mentors should be able to help you understand that and be able to position you to understand how well are you doing in your job first, and then be able to position all of the other pieces. And so, specifically within technology, the challenge isn't getting in, it's staying in. And so, making sure that you're finding the multiple mentors that you may need. You may need the technical mentor that's helping you understand technically how are you doing in your engineering role, your UX UI role, your product manager, your project manager role, and then how are you doing in your relationship manager roles or your relationship manager skill set. So it can be done. Listen, we are definitely seeing Black and Brown women. We're seeing amazing opportunities for lots of people to do really well, but it does definitely take a nuance and a skill to be successful.
When women think of talking tech, just understanding the language of technology as a founder, how important is it to understand the language and then speak the language of investors, speak the language of technologists, and understand that? How important is talking tech?
That's a great question. I do think that there is some value to talking tech. It is that thing that oftentimes make people feel very intimidated. That was one of the things that was very intimidating to me. I don't come from a technology background. I went to school for marketing. I am not an engineer by trade, didn't go to school for it. And so, that was something that felt very foreign to me. What is Python? What is Ruby on Rails? What is agile, project learning? Like what are these methodologies? And so the more comfortable you are in understanding this language, the better you are able to communicate. And so I do think that it does help you navigate some of these, it helps you navigate being able to move between different opportunities. It helps you identify opportunities when you can kind of translate the language, but also understand that the language is changing, the technologies are changing. So, being up to date is also really hard because there's a new technology coming out. What is vibe coding? What is artificial intelligence? Like what are these new things? So, I do think that there does need to be kind of a baseline understanding of what's going on, but also an acknowledgement that you're not going to know everything, and being able to say, hey, listen, what is that? I don't know what that is.
There is a powerful word called TEAM. How important is it for you as a Black woman to know how to build a team?
Mm, critical. I do think it's absolutely critical to understand how to build a team. There's a time to know how to LEAD, to lead a team, and then there's a time to know how to be a part of a team. I think teams are what helps you scale your impact. So when you're able to create a team that actually allows you to scale the impact of your work, that speaks volumes to your ability to, show your success. And so when you're able to do that and identify the right people for your team, I think that becomes really amazing. But it's also really hard when you can find, unfortunately, you have the people on your team that can drag it down, and the people that will, be the Debbie Downers, and the folks that actually can, provide roadblocks and barriers to that growth. So it can be a very tricky thing to create teams that can help set you up to win and set you up to fail.
We talk about failure as a bad thing, but you could fail just in executing, you could fail in just funding for that day. How should individuals approach not getting the results instead of making it so final as to this defines you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, failure is going to happen. I think that I have failed very publicly several times in my life and throughout my career. And so, you definitely have to get used to failure. And so understanding that failure is not only is failure going to happen, it's going to happen often, it's going to happen publicly, but being able to put failure in a box and understand that it's going to happen for this at this one moment and for this one project. And so knowing that the failure is going to be an opportunity to learn, right? It's going to be this one project, this one box, this one opportunity. You're going to learn from it. You're going to go to sleep, and then you're going to move on. And it can be tough. It can definitely be frustrating. It can be disappointing, but you have to define the failure, not let other people define it for you. It's very easy for other people, or it's very easy for you to let other people define failure for you, for them to continue to bring it up, for them to continue to remind you of that failure. You have to extinguish, right? Like extinguish the fire, extinguish the noise around that particular failure, and then create new news so that you can reframe the narrative and move on from that disappointing experience. And so that's just a part of your story, and be able, like I said, to learn from it and to move on from it. But failure is going to happen. So the challenge is to hopefully fail as early as possible in your career, so that you can learn from that as early as possible. But again, failure can definitely happen at any point in time.
When you think about your organization that you have founded and your women are coming wanting to get funding, what should they know about the climate, and what two things should they always make sure they cover when they're asking for funding?
Two things to always know, or two things to always be ready to answer should always be, your numbers. What is your current traction? What type of return on investment should an investor expect? So in terms of margin or profitability, if someone were to give you $500,000, what type of return should they expect? Those are definitely numbers that you should be prepared to answer if an investor were to ask. And then I also think in terms of today's climate, it really depends on the business, but particularly for businesses of color, it's a very tough climate, right? Like we are in the twilight zone. It is a very strange, it's a very strange time where we're just in an administration that is you know saying and doing lots of things that are purposely designed to make people feel off kilter. They're purposely designed to make you feel scared, make you feel indignant and purposely less than. And so you can choose to listen to it and choose to feel that way, or you can choose to focus on the bag. And so I think smart entrepreneurs are going to do what they need to do to focus on the bottom line. The color that is the focus is green. And I think that a lot of investors and a lot of clients that we talk to are always going to be focused on the economic opportunity that has not changed, from January 19th to January 20th, that really hasn't changed. So those are the things that we continue to focus on, and that we will continue to educate our community around at our conference coming up in May, and that we continue to hear from our investor community as well.
You know, 5 reasons, and obviously you don't have to get to all 5, but I'm sure you have them, on why entrepreneurs should attend your conference, and the value proposition and value add that attending conferences does for founders, future, whether you're getting ready to do it now or a year from now. Coming to a conference can give you mental strength and any knowledge to make a difference. What would you say? Share that insight.
Absolutely. You just want 5? No, I'm just kidding. I think that specifically for Roadmap to Billions, we have been very intentional about filling this conference with a lot of value. Let me start with the number one: education, education, education. This conference is packed with very specific workshop intensives that are meant to allow you to leave with literally learning something you've never learned before. We have 2 artificial intelligence trainings, such that you will leave learning how to build a custom GPT and learning how to build an agentic AI bot. So if you already know how to do that, that's great. I doubt that you do, but we've brought in AI specialists you will be downloading software, you'll be downloading tools beforehand, such that when you arrive at Microsoft on Friday, May 16th, you'll be learning how to build agentic AI tools specifically for your business. By the time you leave, you'll have them. That's number one. Number two, you'll also be learning master classes with women venture capitalists, on fundraising workshops. So how to raise capital specifically for early stage startups. So you'll be getting direct training from these venture capitalists, from Antonia Dean, from Regina Gwynn, from Kanji Kaneen, from Hearst Ventures, not Hearst. Oh my goodness. It's a part of the Hearst Venture portfolio. Amazing women that have taken out the time to work with our founders. We also have VC office hours. So there's a very specific focus on the technology founder community. How many is that? That's maybe 2 or 3. Number 4, what we wanted to do this year was have a private, off the record space for founders to be their whole selves. In this climate, we need that. And conferences and like in-person community spaces are needed at this very moment in time. We are all we got, and we are enough, and that's okay. And we wanted to allow space for that and be able to commune with each other. It's really, really important that we touch and agree on that. And Microsoft actually has been an amazing partner of Black Women Talk Tech for years, and their commitment has not wavered. And that has been amazing for us. And so I think that, at this particular moment in time, it was important for us to continue. We had a choice just not to do anything this year, to be very honest. And we decided to actually continue to host a conference, but we made it invite only. We made it private, and we decided to make it smaller and host it there. And then I think the last thing that was really important for us, and why we think conferences, why we think specifically Roadmap to Billions is it's important for this entrepreneur community, is that we've been doing this for 9 years. This is our 9th annual Roadmap to Billions conference. We're not new to this, folks. We have over 15 years of experience, 15 years of networks, 15 years of folks answering our calls, when answering the phone when we call, right? Like the amount of networks, the amount of relationships, the amount of experiences, the amount of people that come and support is massive. And I do think that is a differentiator when it comes to, the amount of cultural and social capital that is of value, and the value proposition that does differentiate us from other conferences or other convenings or other experiences. And so I do think, I think that's 5, but if I could go on and
That's
on.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
right. But for you, you're in a moment where you're producing this opportunity for our community, and thank you for that. I know it's not as a CEO and entrepreneur of both color and brilliance. It is challenging just to experience the environment in the universe that we're all in. I think at the same time, for those people who don't understand that being an entrepreneur means you have to thrive and strive no matter what. How
Yes.
do you keep, even while you're resting, keep moving and take care of yourself and not let the narrative dim your light or your love of self to as a woman to move forward and live your life and your dream in any environment?
Listen, it's hard. I am not even going to lie to you. It is hard. I think, what is it? James Baldwin says to be even what mildly educated, it is to be in a state of rage. Like it is hard to be in this world right now. Like it's ghetto. It's just ghetto out here. Like it's terrible. And I think I just spend a lot of time with my family. I have a 2.5-year-old baby boy who's the silliest. He's just the silliest baby boy in the world, and he is my heart's joy. And he makes me smile literally every day. And a lot of things just kind of melt away when he's just running around. So that, I think, definitely helps for sure. And he reminds me of just what joy looks like, and why I do a lot of things that I do. And so, I think that it's not going to stay like this. It cannot stay like this. And I am not willing to let it stay like this. And I am free. And I am not willing, and I do not accept where we are and what this is. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And that's also comforting, like this won't stay like this. Like it just and I mean, clearly this is easier said than done. But I think that this is we're in, just very interesting times, and it's going to be an interesting 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting 2 to 3 years. It's going to be, I mean, 2026 is going to be bananas, but even all of these like special elections and 2026. And I mean, this man is a lame duck president. I don't care how many times he says, oh, well, I'm gonna, try for, you're a lame duck president. You're a lame duck president. You're a lame duck president. So,
Let me ask you a question. Often you have to fight outside your weight in class when you're an entrepreneur. What are some of the keys to leveraging small finances, teams, and angels that really have allowed you, congratulations, at 9 years to survive? Like, what are a couple of the keys that people need to understand about? And because I don't understand when they say burning cash, I'm like, is that really a thing, or should you make it a thing, or should you really understand that survival? What are those keys for fighting outside your weight class and being able to generate numbers? What are some of those things that you've seen that kind of work and entrepreneurs need to be focused on?
yeah. One of the big things that I think if I had to do it again, I would absolutely advise more people to keep your full-time job for as long as possible. I probably would have stayed in a full-time job for at least 2 or 3 years longer than I did, before going full-time as an entrepreneur. And I think that also hiring, and we've done so many workshops on hiring, and we're doing another one this year. I think that definitely hiring is the hardest part of entrepreneurship, whether it's your first full time hire, whether it's your part time hires, whether it's a 1099, whether it's a W 2, whether it's overseas hiring. But it is the biggest expense. Your overhead will make or break your business. Hands down, it makes or breaks your business. And so find someone, as we talked about mentorship on for careers, your mentor on your entrepreneur side, so critical. Find that mastermind, find that mentor, your business coach, whomever that advises you on hiring, because we made huge mistakes in hiring that could have very well like killed our business in the amount of money we wasted, the amount of money we lost in hiring, from a difference between someone who, people who could have been, who were W-2s that could have been 1099s, or 1099s who could have been overseas, like just those types of different, like that ends up being tens of thousands of dollars differences in cost, and those types of things can make or break your business, I would say.
I'm glad you said that. And just another diversity on the team. You're
Hmm.
a black entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, having diverse individuals on the team. What is the value add of that we may not talk about as a community, but shows up differently when you're asking for funds and people have to know who's on the team?
For sure. I mean, it definitely, you want and need a diverse team, period, the end. Like you want to be able to have the best of the best at all times. So wanting to have the best accountant, the best lawyer, the best marketing, the best operations, the best technology, the best whatever, you're building a business and you just happen to be black. You know what I'm saying? Like you're building the best business and he happens to be Latino. Like, I think that oftentimes we kind of like overemphasize the diverse piece, like just to be very honest. Like I think there's been a lot of conversation about whether black people can make products for non-black audiences. Of course, we can make products for Black audiences. Like, sometimes we're like overthinking things sometimes, like, so, the diversity of thought is, yes, like that does need to happen. And it's critical because it's just as important for any other business to have diversity of thought, because you want the best team for like any strong economic bottom line. And and you want that level of excellence across every function, for sure.
Lastly, and thank you so much for your insight and honesty. When you are literally sharing and looking out in the crowd, and you want them to understand that the landscape is changing, particularly in technology, what should people be dreaming about in two or three of the areas that they just might not be looking at as a community, as a place where they should consider their startups?
Mm, this is the best question. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Climate tech, environmental, environmental engineering, environmental technology. Let me tell you why. So, energy. So, okay. One thing that I discovered a couple of years ago was this idea of like how much money is spent in trying to address the like huge challenges we have in just literally like just powering the world. I'm not even talking the US. I'm not talking New York City or New York State. I'm talking the amount of energy it costs to power data centers, the amount of energy it costs to power the quantum computing for like the artificial intelligence, the space, the SpaceX computers, like all of these things require ridiculous amounts of energy. And you know what? Elon Musk is creating these huge energy centers where in our communities, in Tennessee, in Memphis, in Mississippi. And so we in particular, Black and brown communities in particular, need to be aware and need to be involved in how energy technology and how climate tech systems are being created, because otherwise it's going to be created and then plopped right in our communities and we will have no say in it. So I can tell you right now, I am not the climate tech person. I'm not the manufacturing engineering person. But if you were to choose an industry or choose an area within which to learn or within which to decide to, pursue an opportunity, billions of dollars, billions of dollars are being dedicated to developing new ideas and new systems and new opportunities globally, because it's not just the US that has this problem, right? It's not just the US that's working on developing artificial intelligence. It's not just the US that's working on that needs to figure out how to create energy, right? So that was an easy question, but one that's super, super important, and would love, love, love more and more and more, Black and brown students to hack this for sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. Regina Gwynn, clearly the CEO of Black Women Talk Tech. Thank you so much for your honest and considerate conversation, powerful and brilliant discussion on where we are in our future. Big ups to being a super mom and a sister with superpowers. I'm Munson Steed with CEO to CEO with Regina Gwynn. Thank you
Thank
so
you, thank
much.
you, thank you for having me.